This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 1230, The Crossover Point, the Original Measure of Financial Independence, by ESI of ESImoney.com. And I'm Dan, I'm your host, and this is where I read to you from some of the best blogs on personal finance every single day, including weekends and holidays. And we have 5 shows, actually, which cover all different topics, and you can search for Optimal Living Daily wherever you're hearing this to find all 5 of our podcasts. So for now, let's get right to it and continue optimizing your life. The Crossover Point, the Original Measure of Financial Independence, by ESI of ESImoney.com. Back in 1992, 1. I was married for less than a year, 2. Had just started to grow my career, and 3. Knew virtually nothing about managing money. The terms FIRE, financial independence, and financial freedom were nowhere to be found, at least compared to how they are today. And the idea of financial independence, retiring early, was certainly not as widespread. In fact, I'd say they were pretty non-existent. Dave Ramsey was only 4 years out of bankruptcy and had just written Financial Peace. The Millionaire Next Door was still 4 years away from being published. Susie Orman and David Bach were yet to publish a single book. In other words, a lot of the money literature and people that many listen to these days were not around. They had not yet made names for themselves, and very few, if any, were talking about early retirement and financial independence the way we speak about these today. That is, except for Vicki Robin, the author of Your Money or Your Life. Her book came out in 1992 and was about achieving financial independence. Plain and simple, she started a conversation that we're still having today, and created a movement that was not going to come to life en masse for 25 years. In fact, Your Money or Your Life is listed as one of the original sources on Wikipedia's definition of financial independence. I have named Your Money or Your Life as one of the best personal finance books ever, and placed it on my list of the only 5 money books anyone needs to read. Yes, it's that good, and a must-read for anyone wanting to learn about managing money. Today we're going to talk about one of the core principles in the book, the crossover point. These days, we call this financial independence, or at least a version of it. But back then, this was really the first time anyone had named it, at least as far as I can tell. Anyway, let's get into the book a bit and discover what the crossover point is all about. 9 Steps to Achieving Financial Independence. As noted on both the book's front cover, as well as my review of it, Your Money or Your Life details 9 steps to transforming your relationship with money and achieving financial independence. The first 7 steps are designed to basically set you up for step 8. They focus on cutting expenses as low as you can get them and building up assets which generate income to cover your expenses. There's more to the book than this, of course, but these are the highlights. Note, the book is also awesome at showing that what you think you make per hour of work is much less than you actually earn because of the inherent costs built into working. Eventually, you get your expenses so low and/or decreasing quickly, and income so high and/or increasing that you reach the crossover point. Here's how the book details step number 8. Each month, apply the following formula to your total accumulated capital and record the result on your wall chart. Capital times current long-term interest rate divided by 12 months equals monthly investment income. As an example, let's say you have $500,000 saved that you can invest. We know today's interest rates are pretty weak, but let's say you could get 3% on your money. This would give us the following. $500,000 times 3% divided by 12 months equals $1,250. This means that the capital you have can churn off $1,250 a month in income. As capital increases over time, through savings and earning, the amount your capital earns each month goes up. At the same time, your cost-cutting efforts have expenses going down, or at least has gotten them to a minimum. At some point, the amount earned by your capital is more than your monthly expenses. This is what the book calls the crossover point, the point where your money earns enough to cover your expenses. As a result, you no longer need to work. Here's how the book describes the crossover point. Quote, "The crossover point provides us with our final definition of financial independence. At the crossover point, where monthly investment income crosses above monthly expenses, you will be financially independent in the traditional sense of that term. You will have a safe, steady income for life from a source other than a job." End quote. Pretty simple, right? In addition to being a basic concept, it also turns out to be a safe concept. After all, you're not drawing down any of your assets. You live on the income your assets generate for perpetuity. There's no chance that you'll run out of money since you're not spending a penny of your principal. The crossover point has a built-in margin of safety that's very solid. It's a financial dream come true. The crossover point has issues. But the crossover point did take a bit of refinement to become available to a wider audience. This often happens when someone trailblazes a new concept. They get the initial idea out there, and others develop it to make the concept better. The main problem with the crossover point is that it's difficult to reach. It takes a lot of saving, especially in today's environment where interest rates are so low. For instance, let's say you need to make $50,000 per year to retire. If you can earn a safe 3% on your money, and that's a big if, you would need about $1.7 million in investable assets to do so. That's a pretty high hurdle for most people. It means your total net worth is probably well over $2 million. You'd likely have a house to add to the $1.7 million. Do you know how many Americans have a net worth this high? Approximately 6%, according to an online calculator. And I can guarantee that most early retirees these days, or at least the ones who write about it, usually have a lot lower amounts saved. This is why your money or your life focused as much on cost cutting as it did on income generation, because accumulating enough to cover $30,000 per year is a lot easier than trying to cover $50,000 per year. But even then, you still need $1 million at 3% to cover $30,000. And while people whine and moan that $1 million isn't what it used to be, and $1 million isn't that much, it is still more than the net worths of 88% of the population. And remember, the crossover point requires investable assets of this much, not total net worth. In addition, those investable assets need to be outside of any retirement savings if you want to retire early. See, it's a tough road for most people. The Financial Independence Cavalry. So over time, the financial community has brought in the cavalry to make reaching financial independence more realistic. Namely, they have taken the crossover point and added the following. 1. The 4% rule. Now you can withdraw 4% of your assets, which is at least higher than 3% earning, forever, in theory, though some dispute this. 2. Real estate investing. Many early retirees invest in real estate because it's a lot easier to save up an amount that works at an 8 to 10% return rate than at 3 to 4%. For example, if you need $50,000 in income, it takes $1.7 million at 3%, but only $500,000 at 10%. Real estate return rates make generating your needed annual income much easier. 3. Side hustles. If you need $30,000, you can reach it by a $15,000 side hustle, not that hard to do, and only $500,000 in savings, much easier to get to than $1 million. I talked about this in an article titled How a Side Hustle Business Can Get You to Financial Independence in 10 Years. If you want to run your own numbers and see the impact for yourself, check out my ESI Scale Calculator. These upgrades to the original crossover point have made financial independence more attainable to a wider audience. Thankful for the start. All this is really a way for me to say thank you to Vicky for getting us started on the path to financial independence. It took the rest of us some time to latch onto the concept, but once the momentum started, it's created an entire movement that shows no signs of slowing down. You just listened to the post titled The Crossover Point, the Original Measure of Financial Independence by ESI of ESImoney.com. All right, that should do it for today. Hope you have a happy rest of your day, and I'll be right back here tomorrow with you for the Thursday show. That's where your optimal life awaits.